morning, everyone. This is Michele Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Today, I have a guest that I've been researching for probably 2 years now. He doesn't know that. I never told him, but I listened to his podcast. I've used his products, and I'm just enamored with all that he's achieved. So I want you to be able to share, my viewers, share in my knowledge and also in his knowledge. So my guest today is Wade Lightheart, and he's the president of it's BiOptimizers. Everybody calls it BiOptimizers, but it's BiOptimizers, BiOptimizers. And we're going to hear all about the company and the products today. So welcome, Wade, to Ageless and Timeless.
Great to be here, and I love the title, Ageless and Timeless. Isn't that something we all want to be?
It's funny. A little backstory on that. So years and years ago, when I was coming up in the corporate world, somebody gave me a nice compliment and said, "Hey, you really are so vital, and you blah blah blah." And, well, how old are you? And I said, well, I didn't want to tell them my chronological age because it was so different from my biological. Well, I'm just ageless and timeless. So the idea of that stuck. And when and I'm a real estate developer by background, as I was mentioning to you. So when the real estate world went upside down in 2008, and I was looking to do more philanthropic kinds of things, as I had made my name in real estate, and I didn't really think the timing was right to do new deals. So I asked myself, what would I do if I didn't get paid? But it's my passion. And that, of course, the answer was easy because I'd always been very passionate about wellness and looking and feeling your very best. So so then I said, well, what am I going to call my podcast? And somebody said, well, what's important to you? And I said, oh, Ageless and Timeless. So that's how the name stuck. So thank you for the compliment. Everybody tells me it's a great name and a great brand because it is truly what we're all about, right? We want to be ageless and timeless. So, and that's why we have you on today, Wade. So I wanted our viewers first. I know everybody asks you this question, and you're probably so tired of answering, but really you have such an amazing history. So could you just share with us the kernels, the pearls of wisdom that have shaped your life and how you have come to where you are today?
Sure, thanks. Great to be here. So I really appreciate it. And, life kind of leads you in directions. I believe that there are no victims in life. There are opportunities within both tragedy and, difficulties. And so I grew up in East Coast of Canada, had a great family life, and everything was kind of normal, played sports with my friends and went to a local little town school, etc. And then when I was 15, my sister was diagnosed with cancer. And I watched her go through the medical model. She was 4 years my senior, and then she died at the age of 22 from all of the treatments and everything. And I remember we would travel home from the hospital when she was getting radiation or chemotherapy, and we'd have to stop maybe 6 or 7 times on the 50-mile drive home, so she could get sick. And my 15-year-old self was like, well, why is the supposed treatment, this healthcare thing, making her more sick than the disease seemed to be making her? And it was a very innocent, but just I didn't know the answer to that question. So I went off to university, studied exercise physiology, and was frankly very disappointed with the education I got. It was very compartmentalized. I got a good background in, say, physiology and psychology and, that sort of stuff, but nutrition was really weak. By my exercise physiology professor, I had asked him some questions. He didn't have the answers that I wanted. And I was like, well, I really want to figure out this health thing because I realized that my health and my life wasn't a guarantee. Now, most people don't come to that realization that early. That's usually something when a friend dies or a spouse or someone you care about much later in life. So this became a burning question in my head. My first start was to get into bodybuilding because I thought if I'm big and strong on the outside and really fit and I can run this far and I can lift this much weights and I can look a certain way, I must be healthy. Well, as I went through that career, I went into the nutrition field. I worked at every single level in health food store, nutrition store, became an in-demand personal trainer in Vancouver, Canada. I had a great client base with professionals I never would have had the opportunity to interact with, and people you couldn't get to meet them, but then they were paying me to help them get fit and in shape. But I made the same mistake that so many people in the fitness industry did, and that was a cosmetic ideal of fitness. In other words, if you looked a certain way, you must be healthy.
Mhm.
And it all came crashing down in 2003. I got to represent our country at the Mr. Universe contest. And after that contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks.
Mhm.
So and I was like, I'm 31 years old. I'm supposed to be at the pinnacle of the aesthetic ideal. I've got all this information, I got all this background, I got all these people following me, and I'm fit, but I'm not healthy. And serendipitously, I met a person who changed my life. His name was Dr. Michael O'Brien. He was what I would call a cast off of the Cocoon movie. If you ever saw that, it was a movie all these older people got really young and vital and they were breakdancing and looking great. And he
Right.
literally fit the character. He was in his late 70s or early 80s at the time. And he was the most vibrant human being I ever met. This guy was a medical doctor that was in charge of transforming Bernard Jensen, one of the most famous nutritionists in the world, when he got cancer. And he had cancer metastasized, and he had a spinal injury, and he brought him back to health from death's door, and he had all this track. And he was like, so I learned from him, and I said, Dr. O'Brien, what do I not have right here? Right? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. I got this stuff. Like, and he says, Wade, you've learned to build the body from the outside. I'm going to teach you how to build the body from the inside out.
Mhm.
And he brought to my attention that the reason that I had crashed and burned after the Mr. Universe contest is that the diet I was following was based on macros. It was based on protein counts. It was very like this much protein, this much training, this much diet, this kind of calorie restriction, all of those things which have certain benefits. But at the end of the day, it was costing me my internal health. It was disrupting my liver function. It was disrupting the enzymatic activity, my microbiome levels. There was key minerals and stuff that I was not having. And even though I had all the success, that success led me to this realization. So I mentored under him, and he started teaching me. And no one was talking about this, 25 years ago, like the microbiome and how we don't the food that we eat actually has to get converted through this digestive health process, that involves enzymes and hydrochloric acid and probiotics. And these little bacteria in our intestines would then convert the food into nutrients and vitamins and phytonutrients, and this was what would actually produce the health and vitality that people were looking for, that inner glow. And
Right.
I couldn't argue with the results. I mean, he was the most amazing senior citizen I ever said. So I was like, I'm in. So I went all in on his program. I went extremely aggressive because that was the way I was. I went on a raw food diet, went all these things for all these things. In 6 months, I got my health back. Matt and I started our company at that time. When our first product was Masszymes, because we wanted to create a digestive health product that was above and beyond anything else based on his information, but first served the athletic community. Well, long story short, I ended up serving for the American Anti-Cancer Institute. I ended up running a holistic health care clinic in Vancouver. And a lot of the applications that I was using from an athletic and fitness and health side had applications across all kinds of different disorientation. So I realized that disease wasn't what we thought it was. It was a label for a set of symptoms, and the treatments that were provided for people were treating the symptoms but had a cascade of side effects. They weren't addressing the root cause
Mhm.
of why a person was getting unhealthy in the first place.
Mhm.
What was the trigger that started the whole thing? And so Matt and I, coming from I would say the athletic world, which is the maximization. We're going for the max of everything, where the general public is trying to do the least amount as possible, and then the medical community is in between trying to bridge the gap between those two extremes.
Mhm.
So we said, well, what is the optimum amount? Like, what is the amount that allows you to feel your best, look your best, to live become stronger, to live longer, and ultimately have a better life because your health is the foundation of how you interact in the world, your capacity to do whatever your unique gifts are, your ability to interact with your family, your friends. It is the core element because if you lose your health, nothing has value. Money has no value, friends have no value, family has no value, and I've seen with working with so many sick people, the regret and the frustration as they see their health ebbing away, and then the collateral effect it has on their family, their community, their career, their sense of self-worth, and all of this stuff. So very few people talk about the psychological and emotional and social toll that not being healthy creates. And so we started applying this first in those community, the fitness community, and then we applied it to the general health community, and that gave birth to the company we call today BiOptimizers. And our first field was fixing digestion because that's where most people are disrupted. Just to give you a stat, 12% of the emergency hospital visits today are gastrointestinal related issues. And
Correct.
about a third of the population suffers from some sort of digestive issue on a given day. Constipation or diarrhea or bloating or acid reflux. You know that feeling you have a great meal and you come home and you go, oh, something didn't feel right there. Well, those are little intermediary signals that are leading to a bigger condition down the road. And that bigger condition is going to be because you either have a nutrient deficiency, that you're not feeding your body what it needs, or that you are putting stuff into your system that your body can't metabolize and utilize. And that now becomes a toxic element, which will over time create a triggering. Like you see all these, if you're in California, you go to wherever, like the airport, and you'll see this list of the things like oh, this causes cancer, that causes cancer, this causes heart disease. You see all these warnings from the Surgeon General. Like, well, is that the warning? Like, well, you can't deal with all of the components, and people oftentimes check out. Well, this will kill you, and that will kill you, and this causes this, and so like, well, I can't live my life, so I'll just forget about it. What I recognize is no, the key to success is to optimize your internal physiology so that whatever you face coming at you from your lifestyle or your chosen profession or where you live or whatever, your body has the ability to deal with the toxins, to deal with the stress, to deal with all these triggering elements that lead to disease. And now we've become an Inc. 5000 company, as one of the fastest growing companies in America today, simply because we have found the solutions to both digestion, nervous system regulation, sleep, and brain optimization, as well as blood sugar regulation. And those are the precursor elements on all of those levels that lead to
Mhm.
less energy, less vitality, eventually disease, and ultimately death. So if you can get upstream to that, then you don't have to worry about all those downstream things that you deal with at the hospital.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Gematria Products. Gematria is based in Carlsbad, California, and they manufacture ultra high quality dietary supplements using QI technology. Qi, as you probably know, is the energy that runs throughout our bodies and is the basis of Chinese medicine. Use the code AGELESS and get 20% off your order. I highly recommend Gemetria's products. I personally use the Complete Aminos, the Heart Gems, and the Methuselah Life, which is an RNA and DNA sublingual spray. The website to go to is www.gematria.com/QI-technology. And there you'll find out more about this fascinating company, their products, and the technology.
Yes, but that's a tall order, what you just described. I mean, that's like basically all the elements of health, really, digestion being today people recognize that the microbiome is the center of your immune system is in your gut. But even Hippocrates said that, hundreds of years ago, right? He was the one that said you're all health begins in the gut, but people didn't pay attention to that. But what you've taken on, what is it, 20 years now with BiOptimizers?
Yeah,
20
we're
years?
this. Yeah, we'll be at the start of the January will be our 22nd year for Matt and I
22nd.
working together.
Congratulations. That's That's pretty awesome. And I was telling Tony before we got on the show, because he's going to buy some of your products, and with my encouragement, I told him, these are some of the best that are out there. I told him that the biggest biohackers, the biggest names in the functional medicine industry are big fans of your products. That's not an easy task to accomplish because there's so many supplement companies. So we're going to talk further about how that can possibly happen and what is it about BiOptimizers that can allow that to be your major accomplishment. But before we get into that deep dive, tell us what was wrong with your diet when you were able to get to be so strong and win competitions, and yet as soon as you stopped doing that, you gained 42 pounds. So what was the reason that you had that happen?
Great question. Well, what happened is the performance-based diet I was followed an extremely restrictive diet with a very high protein content.
Mm-hmm.
And with my particular genetics, and so nowadays we can actually look at our genetics, back then we couldn't. And
Right.
with my genetics, I had suboptimal genes in detoxification of my body. And so the undigested protein that I was in, so people think that if I eat 100 grams of protein or 200 grams of protein, that it all gets digested and used. But your ability to convert, whether it's carbohydrates, fats, proteins, or fiber, these are the things that we consume. Our ability to digest, metabolize, utilize that, and distribute it to the body is an efficiency process. And I had a suboptimal one and I didn't know it. And what happened is I had created essentially auto intoxication. I had undigested proteins leaking into my system. This was making me sluggish. What was ironic is I felt miserable competing at the Mr. Universe. When I gained the 42 pounds, I felt a whole lot better because what my body did is it stored all the chemicals and all of the undigested into fat cells and inflammation. So, for example, and if someone feels bloated after a meal, something in that meal didn't get digested properly, and that's
Yes.
caused an inflammatory response. And then if that continues on, it leaks into the system. That thickens the blood. Your liver has to work extra hard in order to process it. And so if it can't process it, it'll store it in a fat cell. That's a dye, a preservative, a chemical, an agent. And then ultimately you start getting organ failure depending on what genetic weaknesses you have. And so I was like, okay, if I fix digestion, then I won't have that problem. Well, that's exactly what I did. Now I went very aggressive in some of the detoxification processes to get such fast results. Like literally, I got my physique back in 6 months. But the difference is I had a new level of energy and vitality. In fact, I worked with 15,000 clients over the next 4 years, Matt and I did, from all around the world to kind of optimize these programs. And in 2007, I went back to the World Championships and felt amazing, didn't gain the weight. So they're like, okay, I figured this out. And now we're ready to take it to a bigger world where we can start applying these to ordinary people in the world that aren't competing in competitions or aren't, playing in sports or that sort of thing, but they want to be healthy and vital. And so that's how the journey unfolded. And then Matt and I, one of the things that we were very clear about, because I had worked in the supplement and fitness industry my whole life, I knew the good players from the bad players. I knew that 95% of the products out there were just white labeled stuff built on trends that had no science behind it, no background. Even the universities were getting involved in creating these very weak studies that would support it. I met with a university professor out of a major university in California that everybody would name. They said, oh yeah, we'll design a study for you. We'll use some rodents or whatever, and that will prove whatever your ingredients would be. And then I went to an ingredient manufacturer, and this guy had a PhD in nutrition. And I said, well, I was touring the factory. I said, well, what products here do you use? He goes, well, I don't use any of these. I'm like, why not? He says, well, I don't know about the quality of these things. I don't know what contaminants are being there. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And people are taking this stuff. So we decided that we were going to hire the best scientists and biologists that we could possibly need to craft our products. We were going to go beyond lab assays. And a lab assay is basically, if you're ordering a raw material for an ingredient in a product, it says, okay, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have that, so it has so much of this. But it doesn't tell you if it's bioactive or if it actually works. And one of the trends that I've noticed in the health industry is that almost every single successful company that I've been exposed to that's lasted the test of time is the founder had some sort of problem,
Mm-hmm.
couldn't figure it out, went on some, hero's journey to all over the world to find what solved it, and then figured out how to get that product or how to get that nutrient or that ingredient, created a whole stuff and developed their own company because they couldn't get it that way. And we just followed the same model. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we did with BiOptimizers. Now, today, of course, we're much more sophisticated. We have a lab, a microbiology lab in Bosnia. We have 20 PhDs and master students that do all these different experiments. We have a partnership with Birch International University, and that allows us to actually determine beyond lab assays, is it bioactive? Does it get into the cells? Is there any cytotoxicity? Is there any genotoxicity? These are things as, would it disrupt anybody's genetics? Would it disrupt anybody's cellular operations if they take this product with a contaminant? And that allows us to make acquire superior ingredients that actually work and combine them in a way that doesn't cause any discomfort or dysfunction inside of the body. And that has put all of our products at a standard that when a chemist or a doctor or a biologist can look at it and dive deep, that has the knowledge and information, they're going, wow, these guys really know what they're doing. I can stand behind that product because they're using legitimate science in the area of nutritional supplementation, which for the most part, that's all been directed towards the pharmaceutical industry. They have a lot of smart people that are figuring a lot of stuff over there. We've just taken that same application to the nutritional or nutraceutical industry with our company. We set those standards. We don't go by standards. We set our own, and now everyone's trying to compete with us to raise their bar. And our goal is to raise the standard of nutritional supplementation above and beyond all of the companies in the industry. And I think we've done a good job of doing that.
Well, you certainly have. And why Bosnia?
Yeah, so another serendipitous event, my business partner, who's like a world-class internet marketer. He was doing Google ads like when it first came out as a teenager, and he's a very bright fellow. He had a relationship with a tech developer in Bosnia and decided he would go to the university to visit him one time. So he goes to the university and he sees the greatest description of the human cell he's ever seen at the front of the inside of the university. He's like, well, who's doing this? And his background was exercise physiology as well as was mine. And he's like, oh, well, that's Monia, who heads up our microbiology lab. He said, well, can I meet her? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he introduced her. And then he said, well, what do you guys do here? And he's like, well, we do all this microbiology. He goes, well, we're looking for a lab that can meet our standards. What's the challenges you're having at the university? And it's a private university, so they had a funding issue. And we said, well, if we provided funding for the university for some key equipment that would allow you to kind of go to the next level, would that be a good partnership if you would run all of our experiments for us? And they said, this would be amazing. So not only were we able to buy that equipment for them and start putting those tests in, that increased the registration at the university by over 30% because it became the place where all of the smartest kids wanted to go because they had the technology that would allow them to get their PhD papers that would have, would stand up to peer-reviewed journals. And so we've had that partnership for many years now, and we continue to develop it. And now we're doing human trials with some partner universities and things like that as we're moving to even more scientific rigor so that we can make the same type of health claims that most supplement companies cannot do because it's been proven not just in the lab, but in human trials. And so that's really exciting, as opposed to the anecdotal testimonials, which we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of.
Right.
We're going to prove this in the science field. So the next 5 years of BiOptimizers, I anticipate the company will explode in its value because people understand, oh, this really tests the most rigorous scientific, investigations that you could put on it.
Right. And these are, everybody says when you buy a supplement, make sure they have an independent lab, a GMP certified laboratory. And, if you look on Amazon, I'm afraid 90% of those supplements do not have that. And I think I tell everybody, do not buy a supplement unless you see that GMP label. So, how do you feel about, your competition in terms of what you're dealing with respect to all these charlatans and how you overcome that stigma?
Yeah, it's always a challenge, and I would say that GMP isn't strong enough in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it will regulate for contamination or make sure that product is safe and effective for use, but it actually doesn't translate into does it actually work in the human biology? It just means it won't mess you up. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've got three tiers. You've got the white label guys who are just producing anything in a gray lab.
Yeah.
That's probably 80%. Then you've
Right.
got maybe 10 or 15% who are producing in a GMP certified facility but don't know if their product works or not. And then
Mm-hmm.
you've got this micro fraction of maybe 2 to 5% of the great companies which people know, trust, believe in, and they go, you know what? I've been taking, like I got a friend, Dr. Udo Erasmus, for example, who's a friend of mine from Vancouver, and he had the same problem with fats and toxicity. He makes great essential fatty acid products. He's got a great company that he works with. He's been doing this for years. He wrote the book on fats that heal and fats that kill years ago. We just had tea a few weeks ago in Vancouver, and we were just talking about how similar our journeys were and how we want to see this next level of standard be produced across the industry and weed out these bad products. Because when you go to your doctor and the doctor says, hey, I don't trust supplements, you know what? There's a good validation to the claim because 90% of what he's addressing is correct, but he doesn't have the experience or the know-how or the understanding to actually go and say this is actually a great product. And that's where the functional medicine doctors are now starting to change. Even the medical industry at Stanford is now teaching about digestive health and functional medicine and how to address issues preemptively. So the younger doctors now in their 30s and 40s are getting information that can now translate. So I always tell people, if you're choosing a doctor or a medical practitioner to guide, and I really believe that's a good idea,
Mm-hmm.
make sure they have a functional practice that is relatively fresh and new, because the new aspect of doctors is getting into prevention as opposed to treating the symptoms of disease.
Well, that's an encouraging piece of information right there, because historically, medical schools, you talk to the doctors and say we had like 1 hour of nutrition in our whole medical school experience. So, the fact that Stanford is one example of being much more open to the idea of functional approaches is huge.
Well,
So,
what's
what
really
what do you
funny,
think? What?
what's really funny is we have so many, as you alluded to earlier, functional medicine doctors, naturopathic doctors, and regular practitioners, even surgeons, who are using products and are in their practices because it's getting accelerated results. So I have a number of, for example, just to give you plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills who are using masszymes in order to accelerating the results from the surgeries that they're doing because the healing rates are much faster. They're also using things like magnesium because they're finding that it's getting the person, back into parasympathetic response, and their body is not having all these cortisol dumps that are inhibiting recovery or healing in their body or helping their brain chemistry for their mental health. So it's interesting and I do believe that the internet, podcasts such as yourself are spreading the word about, hey, there's a whole array of tools that are available to people. It's not your average supplement companies out there. There are good ones, there's bad ones, and there's mediocre ones. And that if you get the right product in the right time, it can make a ginormous transformation. Just for example, with magnesium, so many people, we released that product years ago at one of the top biohacking summits. And we had all these people in a webinar or in a seminar that had sleep disruption. Now, not getting good deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Deep sleep, you have a REM sleep cycle, and you have, which is your kind of dream cycle, and then you have your deep sleep. Your deep sleep, when your deep sleep is right, that's when you wake up in the morning and you feel amazing. You're energized, you're vital because you've had this key recovery time in your sleep cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had all these people who were doing everything, they couldn't sleep. And we said, well, just take 2 of these caps magnesium breakthrough every night and check your sleep scores. The next day, all of these people, because they're all into the gadgets and checking their sleep scores and they're regulating. The next day, we sold out the entire booth because everybody came back and their sleep scores had doubled or tripled in one night. And they're like, how's that even possible? I was like, well, we've flipped your system from fight or flight into rest and digest. And when you did that, your body just fixes itself. And so just little things like that can make such a big difference in the world to people. And, at the end of the day, there's nothing better than a testimonial from someone who's been struggling from someone or something. And it fixes with the use of one of our products. And it just jazzes me up every day. And we read the testimonials out every week to our entire team so that they know that they're making a difference in the world, because that's the most important thing. I want a profession that I make a difference. I help people get healthier. They feel better. They're confident. They're happy to buy the product. It solves the problem. And we guarantee everything. It's 100% guarantee on everything. If we don't fix the problem that you took the product for, we demand that you say, hey, we send the bottles back. We'll give you your money back. That way you can redeploy it into something that would work. And we have the lowest refund rates in the industry, because I know pretty much everybody in it. And they're like, how's your refund rate so low? I was like, well, we make good stuff.
Well, everything you just said gives me goosebumps. As we used to say in Hawaii, chicken skin, it just makes you want to jump for joy that there is something that will work, because there are so many dead ends and you waste so much money on products that just don't give you the results. So when you find one that works, or a few that work, you are loyal to the finish, so. But I want to go back for a moment before I forget to ask this. So amino acids are the building block of particularly for someone like you who's competing, but also just for the regular person. I mean, and yet most people think it's whey protein. Was your problem when you were back in the training time where you had the 40-pound gain, was that to do with having too much whey protein in your body versus the amino acids? I mean, can you give us a little more explanation of that? I'm sorry to go back, because you told us so much. Okay. It's just that I think it's really important.
This is a world-class question.
Okay.
And so anytime that you eat protein, people go, I need protein. No, you need the amino acids that the protein comprises, because amino acids, and in order to get that, there's 5 stages of digestion. There's the chewing your food, so chewing your food properly, taste, touch, smell, and all that. Then it goes from your mouth down the esophagus into the stomach. What happens there is, in the first 30 to 60 minutes, the enzymes present in the food are supposed to start breaking down the food. And then hydrochloric acid comes in after, right? And you need to be properly hydrated in order to make enough hydrochloric acid. There's not a pool of hydrochloric acid sitting in your stomach. It comes in 30 to 60 minutes after. That changes the pH. That disinfects the food. It helps break up the food. And as the pH changes, some enzymes become activated and some enzymes become deactivated. And that chops up the protein, for example, into these little amino acids. Your body then releases what's called bicarbonate buffers. It's a fancy name for alkaline minerals. Those minerals neutralize the acid, because if that acid goes into the stomach, you get ulcers. Right? So you neutralize that acid. The food then goes into the intestinal tract. Now, this is where your microbiome is. This is where the bacteria are. Good, bad, and ugly. As I say, there's 10% good, 10% bad, and 80% opportunists. What was and then the final stage is this peristaltic contraction that removes the waste out. That's the whole digestive process in a very simple term. Now, where people run into problems, humans are the only people on the planet, the only species on the planet that cooks their food. Anything that has been cooked, pasteurized, irradiated in a store, is it like fruits and vegetables or whatever that pass through, different state lines, they irradiate them to kill the bugs. Well, it kills the enzymes. And so then your body has to produce these enzymes in order to digest your food. The problem with that, and this was outlined decades ago by a fellow by the name of Edward Howe, he wrote a book called Enzyme Nutrition and Enzymes for Food, and Food Enzymes for Health and Longevity. Amazing books where they were showing how the loss of enzymes determined both the quality and length of life. And by third generation of enzyme deficiency, all of the species started to develop strange genetic diseases, the inability to procreate, and strange social behavior. And so after we went to conventional production, we used to get our gardens and we had stuff locally and we'd eat our fresh vegetables and all that stuff. We were getting a plethora of enzymes in with our nutrients, our vitamins, our minerals, our protein, and all that stuff. And so we had enough enzymes from our food to actually break this down. When we went to conventional production, like, big, international organizations, monoculture and stuff, what happened is we started getting no enzymes in our diets. We got the food pyramid stuff, or we got protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And what happens is now we have proteins that are coming into the intestinal tract. They don't break down properly. There's insufficient hydrochloric acid. And then the undigested proteins entering into the intestinal tract are feeding bad bacteria. The bad bacteria produces all of these negative toxins and chemicals that get lodged in our brain and our body that makes us feel bad, that causes the intestinal flaming, that makes us feel bloated and I don't feel good after this, or, and if you prolong that. And so what I was doing is I was eating so much protein in order to meet my athletic goals that I wasn't digesting it all. So I was losing weight because I was starving myself. And I had an exercise routine that maintained my muscle, but it was at the cost of my internal organ health. And that's what led me to be sick. And so afterwards, when I corrected my digestive program, number one, I needed way less protein than I did before. Literally 4 years later, I was eating like 300 grams, 250, 300 grams of protein at the Mr. Universe in 2003. When I went back in 2004, I was only eating 85 grams and looked better and felt better.
Wow.
Right. And so I was like, wow, like, it wasn't the amount of protein, is that I was getting all of the amino acids out of that 85 grams, when before I was eating all at 250, I wasn't getting the amino acids that my body needed. And that also translated to essential fatty acids, essential to carbohydrates, to fiber component. So it completely revolutionized my look at how nutrition is, because at the end of the day, what diet that you're going to be successful on. And I'm not I eat a plant-based diet. My business partner eats a ketogenic diet, because genetically, I do better on plant-based than I do on ketogenic. And it's the inversion for him. So again, serendipitously, we had two people in the field coming from completely different. We created a whole book and a course on how to be successful on any diet. And the key is optimize your digestion. Make sure you have sufficient enzymes, sufficient hydrochloric acid, and good probiotics on a regular basis, and 80% of your issues are going to go away because you're breaking down your food and you're not getting these bad bacteria building up in your intestinal tract that are causing all these problems.
That is like, that's just like the best explanation I've ever heard of what happens when you basically buy, go from purchasing a food, which is, that in itself can be problematic, to excreting the food, and then all that goes on in between. So these amino acids, there's a company called Perfect Aminos that I use. Is that a good quality, and is that one that I should be recommending to my viewers?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why a lot of people are using amino acids now, because they're taking the initial format not as a protein that gets converted, that their digestion is so compromised already that they need an amino acid product because they can't digest protein properly.
Exactly.
And so I'm an advocate for amino acids, but at the end of the day, I always say, well, it's a fix for addressing the lack of amino acids in your body, but more importantly, you still want to address the digestive health aspect,
right? Which is where you come in.
Which is where I come in. So yeah, I know the company. It's a good brand. It's a good product. I use various amino acids. I'm always testing different ones for different reasons. I think there's a lot of benefits to amino acids, particularly on how your diet might be, what it might be lacking in. I think it's a good solution. But at the end of the day, I always want to make sure that my digestion is operating perfectly, so that whatever I'm eating, I could be successful on any diet. Doesn't matter. You give me any diet, I could be successful on it. I just prefer the one that I follow.
But you make something very important, is understanding your genetics and epigenetics, really, because
yes,
your genetics are not it's not a life sentence. If you have the gene for APO4, you're not going to necessarily get Alzheimer's. But epigenetics really plays a role. So if you know both and apply the knowledge of your genetics to your lifestyle, and that's what you did, which you recognize that a plant-based diet is better for you. I'm, by the way, I'm exactly the same. If I went on a keto diet, I would be miserable. But that's just because my genetics, slow methylator, I don't want to ever be on something that's going to be taking a lot of time to get through my system, which a fat-based diet is going to do that. So, or even protein, heavy protein. So I'm just like you. I really believe that, that I have to have something that helps me to methylate. So let's jump forward, because I don't want us to run out of time and not talk about the two flagship products that I believe are what makes you so unique. But I know there are more, and I'd like to hear about that. I'd like our viewers to know. But well, okay. So here they are. I think you can see them, right? The two am I right? Magnesium
Yes.
Breakthrough and Masszymes. So Masszymes was your original, and so tell us why magnesium. Let's start. Well, no, let's start with the digestive ones, Masszymes, because that was your first product. So I have it right here. There's like so many enzymes on this product. How did you know how all of these were going to interact with one another and become an efficacious product at the end of the day?
Thank you for asking that. Almost no one asked me that. So when I started mentoring under Michael O'Brien,
Yeah.
and he started teaching us about enzymes, we went through the different types of enzymes. And there's four main categories and there's subcategories, but I'll give you the four mains. Proteases break up protein.
Right.
Amylase breaks up carbohydrates. Lipase breaks up fats.
Right.
And cellulase breaks up fibers. And then there's like these subcategories like hemicellulase or different types
Right.
of proteases, 3.0, 4.5, 6.0, which go to the pH levels. And so when we were looking at the enzymes, he was using enzymes primarily to fix sick people and people that didn't have, maybe the robust diet or weren't eating that much or didn't have the athletic goals that we had. And so we were like, well, we need something that's a little bit more addressing proteases, because that's the problem I'm dealing with, right? Like I'm not breaking down my protein properly. And so we said we're going to build our own product. We got with the top enzyme company at the time. We got Dr. O'Brien's blessing to manufacture our own. And so I wrote out, well, if I'm looking at, because I had so much experience in the dietary health world, both he did on the ketogenic side and me on the athletic side, and then I went to a plant-based side. So we had a good verse, and it's like, well, what if we could make a product that would be an enzyme product that would address every single diet out there, plus really focus on the proteases, because that seemed to be causing the most inflammatory response in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And no one had done that. And when we first came out with it, I remember we were dealing with the guys at the lab, and they're like, this is going to be the most expensive enzyme product ever. And I'm like, I don't care. I need to fix this problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we did it, and we sold it. And because the bodybuilding community is so kind of crazy, it's kind of like, they'll do anything to put on an extra pound of muscle. We had a cult-like following that was going to pay the premium price to make this product. And so we made it, we did it, it worked, it was very effective. People were astounded by it. And then as we got our volumes up, and then as we got our scientific team up, we were able to go around the world and improve that product. We've done it several different times. So the original version, we've got several different improvements from that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the all-in-one enzyme. Just to give you a couple of stats,
Mm-hmm.
the leading enzyme brand on store shelves today is 2,600% less effective. And the leading brand that from an efficacy standpoint that's out there in all the different enzyme companies is 600% less effective than our
Oh
product.
my God.
So if you've had enzymes before, you've never had Masszymes. And once you go to Masszymes, that's it. You're going, oh, I took enzymes before and they didn't work. You take that. First off, most people start to notice their number twos change. I know that's a little graphic, but they're like, wow, things are moving really quickly. Number two, one of the elements to know that if you're suffering from not digesting proteins, gas and bloating is one aspect. The other one is bad breath in the morning and crusty eyes, because your body is literally trying to excrete these toxins out of the system. And also skin can be an issue. If you're having skin problems, your body's trying to detox and it isn't able to do it. You fix that, you do 30 days on Masszymes, you feel amazing. You do 60 days and you're like, I didn't know I could feel this good. And at 90 days, you're like, I'm in for life.
And do you have to take any other, like a probiotic with it to make it more efficacious for the whole process that we're talking about?
You can. If you are going to take it, like we created this whole system, which is, I don't know if you can see it, there we go, which is, we call it the ultimate digestive solution, which would be enzymes, hydrochloric acid, and probiotics. Most enzymes will not survive hydrochloric acids, and most probiotics won't either.
That's right.
So we got a probiotic that survives the digestive hydrochloric acid levels. We got an enzyme that works within all ranges of pH from 2 to 12. And so, and a quick test for people on hydrochloric acid. Most people don't need it, but if you do, a couple indicators. If you have acid burn, you actually probably need it. You're not producing enough. Right. Second thing, you can do a little test. Just on an empty stomach, take a half teaspoon of baking soda, stir it in 4 ounces of water, and drink it. If you burp within 5 minutes, you have enough hydrochloric acid. If you don't, you need hydrochloric acid.
Right.
So we do have a probiotic, a proteolytic probiotic. It's called Probiotic Breakthrough, and it was actually developed by Dr. O'Brien, and he gave us the access to the patent before he died, and provided that because he felt that we were going to take that forward, and we've been using that in Probiotic Breakthrough. So it's a proteolytic probiotic, which has two functions. Bad bacteria, viruses, for example, have a protein coating. That's how it interacts with the cell. It eats that coating off. It survives in the digestive tract. It breaks down proteins. Most probiotics work on sugars and fibers. So even if a person's on a carnivore diet, a ketogenic diet, if they're on a plant-based diet, if they're on just a regular ordinary diet, paleo diet, something like that, it's going to work in all of those dietary functions. So we can accelerate the effect synergistically, but each product that we have works independently on their own. So a lot of people like the probiotic breakthrough because it's a real bolster for the immune system.
So if you take it, let's just say, because I've been using Pendulum's products, so they were on my podcast, so I wanted to give them
great company.
Yeah, and I think the Akkermansia, are any of your products including Akkermansia, which is like the new darling of the digestive world?
No, we are doing some research in our lab on that particular product as it is right now. So no, I don't offer anything in that. I think they do a good job. Yep.
Okay, so you could still take Pendulum's Akkermansia. Okay.
Oh yes.
But I always, think I wasted so much money with probiotics because they never survive my, like the digestive tract. And I tell everybody that, how do you know it's ever getting to where you want it to be? You just probably have very expensive urine and you're probably wasting your money. So how do you know with your products, with the probiotics, that they're surviving the acid of the digestive system?
Great question. So we were, Dr. O'Brien, when he built that product, he took the L. plantarum bacteria, which is an aggressive strain. He put it in a toxic soup, ran a sine wave through it. Out of that, about 2% survived. Those bacteria had mutated in order to survive those extreme conditions, and that's what he got a U.S. patent from. The U.S. patent is on our website. I cannot report all of the elements of the patent, but what I can say is go check it out. It'll blow your mind, but it was proven to be able to survive the high acidic conditions of the digestive tract. I also suggest to people, you don't have to take a probiotic with your food. In fact, sometimes it's better not to, or in a kefir or something like that. I take probiotic breakthrough myself before I go to bed because it's a transient strain that goes through the whole body and cleans things up. And here's what the benefit of that. If you don't have proteins, undigested proteins going through your system or in your blood or that sort of stuff as a nighttime thing, you just don't get sick. So
Mm-hmm.
since I've been using that product now that we're going on 22 years,
Mm-hmm.
in that time I've been sick twice.
Mm-hmm. Not even during COVID.
So that's
Yeah,
a that's a crazy statistic.
I like to brag about that too because I never got COVID. I never took the jab, and I'm very proud of the fact that my immune system was strong and stayed that way during those 4 or 5 years of everyone else getting hit, and
Correct.
including those who had had multiple vaccines. So yeah, so there's something we're doing right, and it's not just an accident. It's hard work. So okay, they just signaled me that we only have 5 minutes, and I want to get to magnesium breakthrough. So
Yep.
look, you're the only product on the market that has seven different strains
Yep.
of magnesium. Nobody else has that. Why is it so important? And give me like 1 minute of an explanation because I want to get to a few other questions before we have to end.
Sure. Well, whenever you see a magnesium, it's like magnesium, what the heckalate. That's the bond that's with the
Yeah,
magnesium. And if you're
yeah.
taking a single type of magnesium, there's only a certain limit that you can get. But if you branch it out over a variety of them, we have two elements. Number one, you can take more of the product without any of the digestive stress. The
Right.
second thing is we do have a theory, this is unproven, but we do have a theory that because there's over 300 different elements that your body uses magnesium for, that the different bonds connect in different cells of the body or different organs in the body
Mm-hmm.
better. So when we did the results, we were able to get better results by using the seven instead of doing a single or two or three strain. And that we was able to prove in our microbiology lab in Birch University. And that's why magnesium breakthrough is now becoming one of the fastest growing magnesiums in America right now. Because we can't get enough magnesium from our diets in
Right.
North America. That's the other element of the
Right.
kind of commercial farming. We
Well,
stripped all the
well,
magnesium out.
well, people need to know how important magnesium is. I mean, what is it? 600 different um, functions in the body that it affects.
Yeah, brain
So, I
chemistry,
mean, that's
blood
like it
sugar,
has to be
heart
one.
regulation, nervous regulation,
Yeah.
everything. Like it's just if you don't have it, electrical signals don't work properly in your body and it disrupts everything.
So, on a blood test, what is a good range for if you measure your magnesium by your blood? Is that okay to do it that way? Can you get an accurate reading? And what would be a good range for a result?
Well, it depends on where you're going to go. So I can't provide medical information
Yeah, I know
because
that.
I don't want to go outside the range of my investigation.
Right,
But
right, right.
your doctor will be able to tell a range.
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
suggest to people though that you don't go for just average. Go to the high end.
The high end.
Whatever
Yeah.
whatever your doctor's using as a measurement, go on the high end.
Okay.
But a blood test will be
Okay.
sufficient.
Okay. So, when is the best time to take magnesium breakthrough?
Well, most people find it easiest to take at night before bed. For
Correct.
example, I keep my probiotic breakthrough and my magnesium right by my on my
Nightstand.
lampstand, and I
Yeah.
just take them before I go to bed because then I take it. I get a great sleep every day. I wake up in the morning, I'm fresh and energized and ready to go, and
Right. So,
that's
what
always
is
my
it?
testament.
One of each at night.
I take four of the probiotics and two of the magnesiums. And if I travel, I usually double up on the probiotics because I know my system is going to be subjected to more dysfunction because I'm eating on a different circadian rhythm if I'm traveling internationally.
And on the bottle, it says for the mass signs, it says take three with a meal. And so that seems a lot to me because I tend to be on the conservative side. So if you take fewer than three, is that still okay? Digestive enzymes?
Yes. Yeah, we started with three because most people that are coming to us um, are using an enzyme is because they have digestive issues. And
Yeah.
three is where you start. If someone is really immunocompromised or really sick or really having problems, I would do as many as five for 90 days.
Okay.
And you can even take them on an empty stomach to kind of clean out what might be built up. But
Okay.
then, like everything that we do, I always say titrate your dosage down. Once you
Right.
get the effect, start lowering your dosage of your product while
Mm-hmm.
maintaining by monitoring your physiology that I'm feeling good, I'm energized,
Mm-hmm.
and all that. And if you start to notice it slip back, up the dosage a little bit. Or
Okay.
if you're going to the, the Thanksgiving dinner, you
Mhm.
might want to take a few more because you might have an extra helping of pie or another thing of turkey or whatever it is. So it's like those are good indications.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's a really good piece of advice. So, one other thing before we have to go, I know that you've offered to, oh, no, two other things. One is calcium. So, everybody for years and years say, oh, if you take magnesium, you need to take calcium with it. But yet, then there's this whole other school of thought that says calcium can calcify your arteries, and you got to be really careful with how you do calcium. So, you don't have calcium in the magnesium breakthrough as an offset or as a combo. So is it okay that you just get calcium from your food, but you don't have to take a supplement, but you can still take the magnesium breakthrough?
Yeah, well, actually, magnesium is the key control element to your calcium levels in the body. We have a
Okay,
lot of calcium in our diet and very little magnesium. And what
that's
happens
it.
that starts dropping the calcium levels in our bone and can create calcification. We have a medical doctor in the heart field who has reduced the amount of people that need surgery by 25% by giving them magnesium breakthrough. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason is magnesium will actually regulate your the calcification of the cells
Mm-hmm.
inside your body, right? That
Mm-hmm.
creates the arteriosclerosis and things like that. And that's coming from a heart surgeon,
Right.
right?
And
And so I've actually taken intravenous magnesium as an experience. And
yeah,
when you do it, the calcification that you have in your tissues, you can actually feel it
yeah,
burning as it breaks it down. Now, I'm not
absolutely.
recommending that for people, but over time, as you have sufficient magnesium levels, your calcium levels will regulate to the optimal levels because your body knows what to do with it.
Yeah, and that's why what I always tell people take when you're taking your vitamin D3, take K2 with it because that helps to get the calcium from the D3 into where it needs to go, not into your heart, not into your blood vessels. So I didn't know that we have 60,000 miles of blood vessels in our body. So that's a lot of terrain to protect. And so, all right. So the one last question, or the one last statement, you said so generously that you wanted our viewers to be able to access your product aligned with an incentive for the first order. So would you give us a little explanation of how they can do that?
Yeah, if you go to our website, put in, so bioptimizers.com is our website. And if you put in Ageless Future into the coupon code, you can put, or Ageless 10. So you can go to bioptimizers.com/ageless future or put Ageless 10 into the Bioptimizers website. You'll get an instant 10% discount. If you order more, you'll get more. Everything's
Okay,
backed by a 365-day money back guarantee. If it's
which
not
is
the best,
amazing.
best product you ever took, we demand that you give our money back. We have real customer service people answering the telephones. So if you
Right.
have a question, you want to know how to take it, call our line. Those questions get filtered to me. So I've literally answered over 8,000 different questions on our products. All our
Right.
staff are trained, and we'll make sure that you know how to take it, you get the best results, it's delivered in a timely fashion, and that you feel good about it, and that your money's protected, that it gets you the results you want.
You know, I think you are the only company that gives a 1 year return policy. That shows you how confident you are in your refunds, that how minimal they are, because you allow people to have a whole year to get to experiment. So I'm sure that people that's actually what sold me. I didn't really know that much about your product line until I bumped into, just by watching Ben Greenfield and Mark Hyman and others. And I said, and that Dr. Mark Burham from the biological dentist, I get his email. So when I saw all these people, I said, hey, this is a company I got to look at. So that's how I first heard about you. But then when I saw that 365 days, I said, well, this is really highly unusual. So, all right. Well, you've been great, Wade. I feel like we didn't get to go deeper that I wanted to go. So I'm going to have you back. Maybe we're booked until third quarter of next year, but expect to hear from me again, if you don't mind. And if
Anytime, Michelle. I love spreading the good news and spreading the message, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and if you look at the list of our guests, you see that there are some people that come back a second time. It's not the first time we've done that because very often we run out of time and we know that there's so much more that we want to have our viewers and listeners, hear from you. So Thank you again. Have a wonderful weekend. And I really appreciate all that you're doing for the world. And really, I think we're at a crossroads right now in the technological advances in medicine and functional medicine for sure. And I know you feel the same way. So I'm looking forward to collaborating with you. And I hope we get to meet in person one of these days.
Me too.